What I look at the PBIS program as a whole is it's one where, in essence, we're accepting the reality that kids come with a diverse collection of skills as to how to be an effective student. And it's incumbent upon us to teach that.
The school definitely needs to have a strong Tier 1 foundation before Tier 2 is implemented. Check-in, check-out is the Tier 2 implementation. And so with that said, we have the foundation of Tier 1, which are our school-wide expectations or rules that a student is very familiar with because it's recited daily and written in all different zones of the school, so to speak, or common areas.
That undergirds the ability to create a Tier 2 process where you're responding to those situations that exceed what Tier 1 doesn't fix.
And so we look at check-in, check-out as one of those interventions that provides a greater reinforcer of the expectations.
Part of the PBIS program is to have the entire staff on board, and that doesn't mean just teachers, but it means all the support staff and everybody on board who's committed to this program. And so when we get referrals and we're looking at youngsters for whom we want to create a check-in, check-out program for them, we use that data and that information to triage cases, to figure out who might be a good match from an interpersonal standpoint or from a problematic standpoint on staff, and we'll match that child up with the adult and commence the process.
Then once the students are involved in check-in, check-out, and we are collecting data daily or weekly, however we set it up, that data really helps us drive how we look at how they're doing, if they need some changes or alterations to however we're implementing that particular intervention. We can use that data to drive those decisions.
At the beginning, check-in, check-out was a little bit taxing because I felt that it was taking some time away, but now that we've had some time to have those conversations, I believe that the check-in, check-out sheet is a valuable tool to be able to redirect, to refer to it as I'm walking by, and I can even just tap on the check-in, check-out sheet and have the student be redirected, and I find that that's as powerful as the meetings after each time period.
Teachers know kids, and they know their kids. And when we talk with that teacher, we get a pretty clear picture about what's going on.
I think with this student, the reason it's working so well and is so successful is because he needs that scheduling and he needs that structure, and he knows that, okay, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and if I meet these goals, I get a reward. And so it's kind of like, oh, I can work for this and I can do something that I'm supposed to do and I get rewarded for it. That's great.
So many times teachers are sort of schooled to be teachers, and that's how they respond when a child would say, gee, I didn't get my essay done last night. You know, it becomes a questioning process. I think the better way is to say something like, tell me a little bit about what got in the way. And allow the child to talk and fill in the blanks as opposed to asking a direct question.
And encouraging the staff that it's part of the culture of our school that we're all in this together. If you're asked to be a check-in, check-out mentor, really consider that that's an honor and a great opportunity for you to make a difference on this campus.
It's this person that they see that they feel not only connected to, but that they have a special opportunity to kind of have an adult give them undivided attention for those few minutes at the beginning and end of their day. And for some of our students, they don't have that in their day, and they don't start off their morning with that face-to-face contact with an adult who's coming from a caring and loving and connected place. So it makes a huge difference for them.
And at the same time, going home and showing their parents what a great report card they have from day to day can be really, really invigorating for a student and motivating to come back and have another successful day. And that's really where the data comes in, and we can see, like, yeah, this is really working for Johnny. He just needs a positive adult in the school setting where he spends most of his day, at least 6 to 7 hours, and being able to gain from that.
My student in particular is rewarded for all 2s and 3s from his parent at home when he brings home a sheet that's all 2s and 3s. And so that extra reinforcement from home is very valuable as well.
And sometimes you have different levels of parent buy-in. And so when you have the data, it removes that emotional piece for parents. And so instead of it being a judgmental, or the parents have to be on the defensive regarding either their child or possibly, how they parent, the data just allows us to look at the evidence of what's there and have conversations about it.
Ideally, within that conversation, you are able to make a connection, and if it's something that's going on at home, then you get more information about that and know how best to proceed. On the other hand, if it's more of a school-related problem and the parent's unaware or maybe doesn't play a role directly in the genesis of the problem, you're really in a situation where then you're able to inform the parent in a way that you might not be able to if once again you held them at arm's length and didn't involve them as part of the process.
We track the check-in, check-out data using the student's check-in, check-out card, and that lets us do some informal data checking throughout the day.
I log into the system and I input their information. Work with Mrs. Jenkins to make sure that I'm doing it correctly and that I've got the time to work on it. It usually takes about a minute, maybe 2 per student. It really doesn't take long. In a day, I probably spend 5-10 minutes doing it. In the morning when it's a little quiet, and also when school is dismissed and the students are gone in the afternoon, has some quiet time for us. On that sheet is information as to how well they did the day. They're given points, and teachers write comments like awesome day, had a little bit of trouble today, and it also talks about what they're going to work on maybe tomorrow. So that information is given to me, and as I'm entering their scores, I'm also putting all those comments.
Every 2 to 3 weeks, we look at each student's data and see, is it working? Do we need to tweak something? Do we need to change it? You get to see themes, you see trends throughout the weeks of working with a student, and that really helps the team to guide the next steps. You can get very creative with it within the checkout and checkout parameters. Some students don't necessarily like praise or don't like the praise in front of their peers. And so you really get to take all of those things into consideration.
Very important that we really check in with the student too, and usually we get information from the students about what they would like as little incentives, because their buy-in is created by that. We could all think as adults, oh, they'd love this, they'd love this. Then you find out a different story once you start to ask them, what are some little incentives that you would really like? And they tend to not be anything very large, but again, the majority of it is the relationship more than it is the token at the end of the day for earning the points. But we do find value in them actually having some sort of material item to step away with to kind of remind them when they look at it, I earned this.
I've also done the check-in and check-out for a couple students. I think they're behaving better. I think also there's some empowerment. It's like, I can make better choices. I can do a better job at handling myself at school.
We're definitely seeing improvements. I would say a good 80-85% of the time check-in, check-out does work. We also want to make sure that a student's ready for it to go away. So there are guidelines as opposed to rules when we're working with students on check-in, check-out. But overall, it really has been something that has helped individual students in the classroom to learn more. They're in their seat, they're in the classroom, they're attentive, and so they're able to learn. It also helps our teachers because it gives them that accountability as well to make sure that they're giving the student the interaction, the praise, the incentive. It's helping to build those relationships. We look at it in our Tier 2 team bi-monthly, and then we look at the kids and we share that data with our staff. So overall as a staff, they can see how it's working and what kinds of things changed, because even if they don't have a student that's particularly on check-in, check-out, they may decide to up the number of praises for a student. They may decide to up the interactions or offer incentives with a student that isn't formally on check-in, check-out. And so we may be getting kids that are actually utilizing the system without actually formally being on it. And that's coming from their conversations with their colleagues and also from the sharing of the data school-wide.
I've seen adults and students just benefit from the practice of doing something that's very small. And schools are busy, and so to have an intervention that meets the needs of students but also doesn't take a ton of time away from adults on campus is so huge. We're always looking for that, because it's so challenging to try to meet the needs of so many students who are having varying levels of struggles and challenges.
And so a check-in, check-out procedure doesn't have to necessarily look like a heavy-duty mental health program, but what it is it's a connection with a child. And going through the data gathering, the conversations that happen leading up to it, the interventions that happen over time, they lead to a whole lot of knowledge about the why of what's going on.
I find the teachers and the mentors and the staff on campus benefit from more communication. We get the information and the data from the sheets, but we see the relationship and we see change happen.